Your point is, where do they draw the line? Isn't it very interesting where they draw the line? Why draw it at states? Why draw it at colonies? And you make the point in your own article, according to them, if they really take their logic to its conclusion, we all have to leave because the Indians own the place.
That's right. That's right. And if you look right this minute, the two major news stories going on right now, one you've been talking about all night is the hurricane, and the other is what's going on in Tripoli. Now, what's happening in all these areas with the hurricane? You have order. You have liberty, but you have order. And you have local officials and state officials that are stepping up to the task and dealing with what you've got to deal with to deal with a hurricane. Over in Tripoli, you got men with guns running around over there, and for all we know, whoever is the strongest is going to prevail and be the new Gaddafi. I mean, we simply don't know what's going to happen. But the reason we have the situation, the reason we have a constitution is so that when we have situations exactly like this hurricane, we have order. We have liberty with order. And over there, they're running around with guns. And these folks, what they're effectively saying is they prefer what's going on in Tripoli than they do what's going on in America here with all these evacuation orders.
Let me underscore one point, though. You and I are very unhappy with the way the Constitution's been trashed. We're very unhappy with judicial activism. In other words, we're very unhappy with those who do not comply with the Constitution.
Exactly.
What you and I are saying, and many others, by the way, is that these guys who support Paul, these senior advisors, these mouthpieces, they wave the Constitution around, and yet they really want to go before the Constitution, pre-Constitution.
Sure they do. And again, as you noted, and as I said in my article, saying that they're for self-determination. Well, what happened to the Indians? I mean, why aren't they evacuating the Southern Avengers' home city of Charleston right now and getting everybody out of there for good? Not for a hurricane, but for good. Because, after all, the Indians were here first. Don't they just have the right of self-determination? I mean, right. Their thread of logic here is just ridiculous, and they cherry pick with all of this.
They also cherry pick the founders. They cherry pick their statements. They cherry pick the Constitution. I've written a piece called "Ron Paul: The Neoliberal Re-Education Campaign." I want to be very clear about something. In many respects, I believe we live in a post-constitutional America, Jeff. With the way the Supreme Court operates, so many of these programs have no basis in fact or law. The state authority has been diminished in ways I think the founders will be absolutely appalled. But in many ways, I don't think they'd recognize this country. That said, I'm not an Articles of Confederation guy. I'm not a secession guy. I'm not a neo-Confederate guy. In other words, I actually support the Constitution and the founding, right? Isn't that the point?
Well, of course it's the point. You know, if you compare, for example, the Whiskey Rebellion to the Tea Party, today's Tea Party, what's the difference? The Whiskey Rebellion, they took tax collectors and literally tarred and feathered them, took them out in the woods, burned their clothes, stole their horses, tied them to trees, and left them. And Washington, who was the new president, had to send federal troops out there to take care of this. Today, what happens with the Tea Party? They're out there protesting taxes, but they pay their taxes. They don't run away from paying their taxes. They want to get them lowered. They want to cut spending, all of that kind of thing. But they do this. You believe in the Constitution of the United States. You and I believe that the whole concept of limited government has gone, off the tracks here with all of these liberals.
We don't believe in secession, for crying out loud. Exactly. You don't try and leave the Union because of this kind of thing. I mean, this is where this gets off the tracks, and this is why this is important. This is why Liberty and Tyranny was important. This is about educating people as to the facts on the ground about the Constitution and the people who wrote the Constitution, James Madison, and the various principles involved, and these folks basically want to create a whole new world of historical untruths. They just sort of make it up as they go along here, and then they don't even want to accept the consequences of their own logic. I mean, that's what's so bad about this. And you'll get people out there say, well, you got to have free speech. Well, of course, I'm not saying shut them down. I'm saying their arguments are terrible. Their arguments are terrible, and I think in some cases dangerous. Now, their foreign policy, we only have a minute in this segment, then we'll carry it over to the next segment.
You're saying their foreign policy is McGovernite. I've been saying that too, and in fact is in line with a whole host of liberal Republicans throughout modern history.
Exactly. William Borah, Gerald Nye, George Norris, these were all what we would call today rhinos, Republicans in name only. They were the Arlen Specters, if you will, of the 1920s and 1930s. They opposed the U.S. entry into World War I. They opposed the entry into World War II. They were part of the American First Committee. They were very liberal on domestic policy. They were very much supportive of Franklin Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson and the New Deal.
All right, well, we'll be right back, but you're comparing them on foreign policy, as I recall. One of the things you write about in your piece in the American Spectator is this camouflaging of really anti-Semitism with the neoconservative phrase. Neoconservative phrase is legitimate, but explain what you mean.
What I mean is, because neoconservatism, quote unquote, involves so many people who, in the beginning, in the 1980s, late 70s, who were Jewish, this has now become a code word for Jews, and it's anti-Semitic. I mean, that's the intention here. And I want to say something here because I'm Protestant and you, my friend, are Jewish, and it's a little easier for me to say this. You are a target of this. And I for one resent it. It's morally wrong. This is the target. This is what they do, and it's you today and somebody else who is of the Jewish faith the next day and the next and the next. Ronald Reagan would be furious at this kind of thing. I mean, this is unacceptable. So this constant business of, Mark Levin's a neocon, Mark Levin this, neocon.
Which I'm not, of course.
Exactly. I mean, what they're trying to really do here is play this anti-Semitic game, and it's totally unacceptable, and I felt somebody had to say that.
Well, you're very kind, but, by the way, there are aspects of libertarianism that I identify with on the economic level and so forth, so I want to make this clear. I'm a huge fan of Walter Williams, for example.
Right.
Was a huge fan of Milton Friedman, who, by the way, was very supportive of our legal group, Landmark Legal Foundation, and a lot of the litigation that we did and have done throughout the years. And by the way, they trash Milton Friedman too.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I mean, this is the game. Anybody who displeases them, they're going to trash you. I mean, that's the whole game here until only they are left standing in their mind, and they're out to try and destroy people's credibility here. And you, my friend, have enormous amounts of credibility here, both on your show and your books and this kind of thing. And it's very important that we get this kind of thing out there.
Well, Jeff Lord,
it's sad that they do this because good arguments get polluted when they do it.
Well, God bless you, my friend. It was a very courageous piece you wrote because I know you're under attack, but anyone who objects to them is under attack.